Hello, once again. This is Mr. Aguilar, and I'm doing a series of videos. This is the second one that I'm doing. The first video in this series that I'm doing, I focused on pencil grips. So we talked about overhand pencil grips from near the tip, like you're writing, to back here, which is more of your comfort zone for drawing, to moving towards the back, and then getting into an underhand grip and really moving back to the back of the pencil. And we do this so we can learn control over our values, so we can draw a light value, medium value, dark values. And then we also talked about the pinch method, where you're pinching the pencil and you ease into a pinch and you ease out of a pinch. And that'll help you get a gradation or a transition from light to dark and keep it smooth. So if you're interested in that, watch the previous video. This one, we're going to go over different body mechanics, different body movements. I don't know how in-depth I'm going to get. We'll just see as the video goes along. But I have a couple of things that I want to show as far as body mechanics, tips and tricks for drawing. And basically, these are just skill sets and things that you can use as warm-up devices before you draw or sketch, just to kind of loosen up your body and get a feel for your pencil. I mentioned it before. The reason I'm using this pencil, it is a 2B pencil. It's soft, but I've used it to the point where it's down to here. So I have a pencil extender on it so I can have the full range of the pencil and full control over my values. I found that if I used, again, lighter pencils, or harder pencils, I should say, the video quality doesn't pick it up as much. So that's the reason you guys are seeing this. So today in class, we talked about how body mechanics and how we move. We are elliptical people. So what that means is when we're drawing and doing things, we want to move in a circular fashion or elliptical fashion. We don't move at angles, right? We're not people that move at sharp angles. Even when we're running, we're not running like this. Everything we do is elliptical, so it's important to understand that when you're drawing, because body mechanics plays in your ability to draw. One important thing you want to understand is you don't want to move away from the core of your body. So I'm going to scoot back real fast so you can see me a little bit clearer. You want to stay in the core when you're drawing. You want to be right around here. It's better to even have it at an angle. So if you have an art board, you can put an art board down and now you're drawing at a comfortable 45-degree angle. That is the most ideal drawing position. But sometimes you don't always have the material to do that. You might not have an art board. You probably don't have a set of drawing pencils. So basically, we're just going to be focusing on using one pencil and then different techniques that you can use for drawing. So, excuse me. One of the things I want you guys to keep in mind, do not extend yourself. Do not be reaching out into space. Do not try to draw it here. We lack body control the farther we move around our body, or farther we move away from our body. Okay, so we want to stay in the center. And if you want a good example of that, you could grab something light, like I have my sketchbook here. It's not too big. It's fairly light. But if I hold it out, after a while, I can feel the weight and I can feel the tension and I can feel fatigue in my hand. I know I'm not quite as strong, even though this is a very light object. After a few minutes, it's going to feel very heavily. But if I were to simply just hold it against my body right here towards the center, I could hold this position for a half hour, 45 minutes to an hour, and I'm not going to have any fatigue. And this just goes back to our basic body mechanics, and that's one of the things that I really wanted to talk about, is understanding how our body works and how we apply that to drawing, because I think that's important. So there's a couple of things. I'm going to try to keep things linear as far as steps that I'm going to talk about. And one of the really easy exercises you can do, just take your pencil and, again, try to stay within your body. You're going to notice that I'll rotate the paper to match my wrist movement. I don't want to do anything where I'm trying to, contort my hand in a way that's not natural or comfortable. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm just going to draw some nice ellipses. Very easy. Not hard at all. And then I'm going to also try to do some circles. Now, to do the circles, and I'm going to move this camera, I want to be as close to myself as possible. I want to be right in here. Once I start extending out, my hand movement's going to become more elliptical than round. So when I keep it towards the center, towards the middle of my body, I can keep that movement more round. And again, just moving a couple of inches farther than comfortable can make a huge difference. So I'm just going to draw some circular shapes. Nothing too big, nothing too fancy. And I say circular shapes because if you look at these are not circles. They're a bit ovals. Some are closer to circles than others. And for sketching, usually I try to keep this really, really light. I'm not using a soft pencil like a 2B pencil, but I want the camera to pick it up and I want you to see it. Now, I use these lines, these round scribbles, to find my circle. So if I'm sketching and I need to just draw a quick circle, I'm just going to do some really light round-like shapes, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and say, all right, where is my circle in this? And what you're going to find is you can see where this is kind of going out to an ellipse or almost an egg shape. But from here to here, it's pretty much a circle. So what I want to do is I want to use as much of that line as possible. And then I'm just going to find my circle. And these aren't going to be perfect. If you need a perfect circle, use a template. Right? This is just for sketching. And again, you're going to find stuff that's inconsistent. So like, where's my big wobble at? So I call these wobbles. It's right here. There's my big deficiency, right? I don't want that. I have another one right there. So we're going to keep at this. And the difficulty for me right now is I'm extending myself. And the very first way I started talking about the video is not to extend yourself. But again, there are limitations to what I can do with the camera. Even if I try to get this camera out here, I'm still having to reach farther than I'm comfortable. So again, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to find the circle within these because it's there. I just need to find it. And here's a nice little challenge. If you don't believe how hard a circle is to draw, try it. Try drawing a circle. If you have a template, that's even better, because I'm going to show you what you can do with the template afterwards. So try drawing a circle, do the best that you can, and understand when I'm doing this, I'm doing it much, much lighter. I'm using a harder pencil. I'm not using a super soft 2B pencil. And I'm intentionally trying to make these darker than I normally would, even with this pencil, just for the camera, so the camera can pick it up. Because I want you guys to see this clearly. And this is what we're doing in class. So I teach an art class, high school. And right now we're on remote learning. And the video quality is not the best. So our live classroom, the video quality is really, really bad. And that's being nice. So what I'm doing is I make these videos. I edit the sound to make the sound more clearly. And this is really so like if students need to replay what we did in class, I can make these videos. They don't take too long. They actually take longer to edit and upload than they do to make. But I'm just going to show you with this, you can get pretty accurate with your circles. Now, you're never going to be really perfect. You might get lucky here and there, but you can get fairly accurate with your circles, and a nice, I like to do this from time to time. You can see how accurate you are, and this will let you know whether or not you need to keep practicing to get better, or if you're kind of getting there, if you're almost there. So it's a nice little check. Now, normally, if I'm doing anything like a technical drawing, I'm using one of these. Okay, if I'm doing a finished product, like a finished illustration, I'm going to use that. Now, generally, when I do freelance illustration, I'll sketch stuff out and scan it. But if it's for like a design or graphic design, I'm finishing it on a computer, so I can get very geometric and very precise with the computer. But if I do stuff by hand and I need it to be finalized by hand for whatever reason, I just use the circle template. So those are some of the things that you should try while you're practicing. Now, one of the other things that we talked about, okay, we went into today, is just hatching and creating different values. I'm going to zoom back out so we can see this a little bit clearer, and then you can see it in the camera. When you're using ink, you can't change your values from light to dark because the ink is black. So the pencil adds an extra level of abilities, or an extra level of what you can do in a drawing that you really can't do with like a pen and ink drawing, because we want to do some nice little hatching. So I'm going to do this and just have the nice little hatching here. And you can create some textures, but the other thing you can do is you can change your hand grip. So if I come back here, now my hatching is physically going to get lighter. So not only are you creating value with your hatching, you're also creating a change in value with your hand placement. You really can't do that with ink. Black ink is black ink. It doesn't matter if you're down here or up here, it's going to be black. And I'll show you the difference in a second. I'm going to show you a couple more things before I show you some examples. And you want to try different techniques that you can do, and a lot of this is for creating texture, for creating the illusion. So I'll do something like, I'll have like a thick to thin line, and these are techniques I also use with an ink pen. And then you can create stuff, and let me get this, I'm sorry, get that out of there. And you can also build off of that. So you can have these values that change, or angles that change. You could have stuff that is curved, and then you could go and do something that is curving in a different direction. And you create a bit of movement. And this is more like illustrative techniques, especially if you're dealing in black and white, especially if you're dealing with ink, where you want to create motion, you want to create changes in value. And again, this is out of context, so I'm going to show you some stuff that's in context. And again, you can also do cross-hatching. Now here's my problem with cross-hatching. So I'll do a little bit right here. I have a hard time demonstrating cross-hatching when I don't have a purpose for it. So it's much easier for me to demonstrate cross-hatching if I'm showing you on an illustration versus just doing it on here. So what's the point of all this? Okay, we're going to get to that. The other thing I want to talk about, and this is before we leave, and I want to mention this because we discussed it in my class today. You can start combining these skill sets. I'm going to draw a little ellipse just like I did above, right? And then I had a previous video where we start talking about how to change your arm angle and just make it almost robotic, right? Where you're coming just like this. and you're getting rid of the curve, you're getting rid of the curve. You're just straight mechanical. I have a hard time explaining it. I'm just moving up and down for my shoulder, or I'm moving up and down for my elbow. I'm getting rid of that curve because what I want to do is I want to draw a straight line coming down, and I don't want to have a curve in here at all. I want this to be perfectly straight. So I'm working that line straight down. And then I'm going to add another part of the ellipse. And this is why you got to get comfortable drawing these curves and connecting dots. Because you don't want to draw the whole ellipse, right? I don't want to draw that bottom part of the ellipse. I just want to draw this top part of the ellipse. I kind of wish that was a little bit rounder, but we'll leave it like that is. And then I'm going to get rid of this little extra little wobble out there. Okay, so when you start combining stuff like ellipses and straight lines, then you're going to start creating forms like a cylinder. And then you can take the previous lesson where we talked about the pinch technique on how to control your values. And I can come in here. Now I'm just using an underhand grip, middle of the pencil. And I'm just going to put a shadow in here. And this is going to be my core shadow. So core shadow is the darkest part of your shadow. I'm going to move a little bit slower than I did in class because I want us to look a little bit nicer. When I'm teaching, I have a clock. I have to get through stuff at a certain speed. I have to get through it before class ends. So in the videos, I can move a little bit slower. And then if I need to do anything that takes a really long time, I can just speed up the video. Right, power of editing. So I'm just going to come in here, and what I did is that pinch technique. So as I didn't change my hand grip. I pinched to get my darker value, and then as I moved away, I just started easing up on the grip and putting in my lighter values. And I want to create a nice gradation. I'm going to add a little bit of value to get rid of some of my little scribble up here. And what we're saying is our light source is closer to the other side of this cylinder. It's on this side in the back, and we could say it's up here. I'm just going to put a little dot up here. This is my light source. And one thing we talked about is, how to cast a shadow. So I'll give a quick explanation for that. If this is my light source and I give myself a horizon line. Okay, horizon line is also known as your eye line, where you see things. So when you look off in the distance, that's your horizon line. If you take your light source and your horizon line and you drop a line straight down, I'm going to put a little point right there. That's going to give you your 2 points. And I can take this and run this through the edge. And again, this is where being able to draw that straight line comes in beneficial. And I got a couple of points that I want to go into. So I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to come here. I'm going to come in right into here. And I can ghost and then draw. So ghosting means you hover over, but you don't actually put that pencil down. And then from here to here, I can go from here to here. And I can go from the middle part here. And then I can go from here to here. And now I have a point here, I have a point there, and I have a point there. I know the sides are straight because we have a straight edge. And then I know the top is curved, so I want to connect these 3 points with the curve. And now I have a shadow. I'm going to probably do some videos that demonstrate how to cast a shadow that's a little bit more specific. The only reason I'm doing this right now is because this is what I did in my class. And I want to give my students the same lesson that we went over. So any information that I went over in class, I want to do the same so they can see. So here's my shadow. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a darker shadow here because that's where the least amount of light's hitting. And then as the light is coming through here, it's going to be a little bit lighter. And then as I move away, okay, as you move away, your shadow actually is a gradient. It gets lighter. Unless you're like in really harsh sunlight where it's directly coming down, your shadow is going to start to fade as it moves away. Because now more ambient light is coming into play, more reflective and bouncing light. So there's that. And then if I really want to sell this, I'll put just like a regular value down here. And you're going to see that every time you do something like this, you're adding to the illusion of 3 dimensions, right? Because we're dealing with the flat surface. So we talked about, let me get all this into camera here. We talked about creating an ellipse, just getting that movement down with your wrist, getting used to it. Learning how to create circles, okay, which is great for sketching or if you're doing round objects. And then we talked about making marks like hatch marks and cross hatching, marks that end in dashes. So let's look at applications of that. And a lot of these are just tutorials or sketches that I did in class. They're nothing really big. But I want to show you guys some of this so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, when we talk about those lines that come back and they have little dashes, okay, so we can use this for showing texture. Drawing circles that are kind of complete or incomplete, or even doing a cylinder. We want to be able to do that for doing the octopus, for doing that hatching, right? And changing our angles. This is what's going to give us a lot of our texture, but it's also going to give us our value. So these are things that we want to look at when we're drawing. If I want to create a texture of a material or a surface like on a beetle, I want to be able to show that. Even if it's just a value for artistic reasons, just to give you guys kind of like a something to look at visually, it's important. And you can see with ink is black. It doesn't change. The only way you can make it appear darker is by getting your lines closer together. And now you can see how you have some of that movement in there. And I'm going to show you another example with the, this was the ink. And again, this was like a tutorial in class that I did with students, but I wanted to show a couple of things. This is what I'm talking about. You have these lines and then they come into the dashes and that creates a texture. You have these lines that are going from thick to thin, and they create a texture, they create a feel to it. This is why we have to practice drawing curves and getting used to our body mechanics, because you might want to create something that has a lot of movement. And the thing about thin lines that curve a lot is they give a sense of grace, right? Being graceful. Gives a kind of like a fluidity to it, some movement. It's not stagnant. So these are things that we want to look at while we're creating different textures. So this was just a tutorial that I did for my students. You know, this is another one. And again, just using lines and dashes to create these textures and to create different looks and feelings. And again, this is all done with ink pens. This one, not complete, right? This is a demo. And basically, this is me demoing how to add texture in class. And I do a little bit every day in class. So I'll show them how to do some trees. I'll show them how to do slate stone. This isn't by any means like I'm sitting down to do a really nice illustration. But I'm trying to show enough in my class time on how to do this. And again, a lot of this is just the techniques we talked about. So here you're going to see a lot of that hatching. And this is what I was talking about earlier in that video. You can apply value to your hatching, meaning lighter and darker values with your hatching with a pencil, whereas you necessarily can't do that with the pen. And that just gives you the ability to create more depth. Okay, so this is extremely blown up right here. So you're looking at, I mean, this is on a regular 8.5 by 11 paper. So I'm really getting in there. So you can see these hatch marks and the change in values and the type of depth that you can get. So I just wanted to show you some values. And again, these are all class demonstrations. Okay, so these are just nice, easy things we've done in class. I'll zoom back out. I'll get this up. So that's what we covered today in my class. So this would be the second video. The first video was, again, just how to hold the pencil, how to do gradients, how to shade. So hopefully you found this interesting. Feel free to give me some feedback. I'm always trying to make these videos a little bit better. And I'll see you next time. Again, this is Mr. Aguilar, and this is Basic Drawing Fundamentals.